Hi there, and welcome to the Student Success Session, Strategies for Success in Online Learning. My name is Pat Lawton. I'm a communication faculty here at Inver Hills, and I want to just walk you through a few things that I've seen and that I've learned from teaching online for over a decade. So I'm going to cover three topics today. You can see them right here. I'm going to talk about understanding yourself, understanding the expectations, and understanding how to communicate. Let's get started. All right, the first one we have is understanding your strengths. This is about understanding yourself. When you're in an online class, you need to understand what your tendencies are with your learning process and with being online. And so what I always say is you need to understand your strengths and put supports in place for places that you're not necessarily strong in. So are you self-motivated? Are you good with managing multiple deadlines? Are you good at finding solutions? If the answer is yes to these, great. If the answer is no, like many of the rest of us, then you need to put some supports in place. So if you're not very self-motivated, make sure that you are scheduling time in your day multiple times a week to work on the online class. I would treat it just like work. You have a schedule for work, have a schedule for school. If you're not strong with managing multiple deadlines, do yourself a favor and set some alarms on your phone or get a paper planner and use that for your deadlines so that you know exactly what's happening. I tend to use a paper planner. I also print out the calendar for each course so I can look at the week ahead and understand what's coming down the pipe for me. All right, and lastly, are you good at finding solutions? Well, if you are good, that's great. You can poke around on the Inver Hills website if something comes up, or you can reach out to your instructor. But if you're not necessarily, this isn't your strength, now is the time to get really good at this. And understanding where you can find resources at inverhills.edu is really important. So if you're having technical problems, your best bet is to go to the Technology Services website under Inver Hills and ask for a help desk consultation. If you need help at the library, there is a website right on the Inver Hills main page to bring you to the library website where you can hook up with some librarians. If you're looking for advising or counseling, that's also available right on that Inver Hills website. So they've done a great job on inverhills.edu of putting a bunch of resources up there for you that you can poke around on and that you can check out yourself, and you can be your own advocate. We'll talk about a little bit more about, if you can't find a solution, what to do when we talk about communicating with your instructor. All right, the next thing you need to know about online learning is that each instructor creates their own course. What does this mean? It can mean a number of things, and I've listed some out here as you can see. So let's look at these. First, layouts might look really different from course to course. Since we're all online right now, and you may continue taking a bunch of online courses, or you may just have one or two in the future, you need to know that each instructor creates their own course. So that means that the layouts might look really different. You should have a common sort of look to them, but the elements within might look really different. So some classes, for instance, integrate the textbook right into the D2L site. Some professors that I know, they use a checklist and everything runs out of that function on the D2L site. Some professors like myself, everything runs out of the content. And so thinking about how your instructor has set up the course is going to help you succeed. Most instructors I know will either post a video or post a document that kind of walks you through how to navigate that course. I know myself, I post a video and I kind of run through D2L. Other instructors may do things differently. Some instructors, for instance, will use discussion boards. Some will not. We have professors on our campus who will use a podcast, for instance, in place of a discussion board. So there's all kinds of different ways that instructors will make the D2L course their own, which is great because it serves the purpose of that individual course, but sometimes it can get confusing as a student. So just understand that there is not sort of one standard that we are held to in terms of designing our courses. Each instructor designs their course themselves. And so if you have specific questions about how that course is laid out, you can reach out to that instructor because they are the mastermind behind that. So you're going to want to do that if you have questions. So just know the takeaway from this is that each instructor designs their own course, and that means that things might look a little different, and that's okay. This is a chance for you as a student to be a little bit more flexible. All right, next, due dates are going to vary. Okay, so in online classes, due dates are going to vary a lot from class to class. We don't have one standard due date for all of our online work across the college. So what we see is that typically we have courses that some due dates are very consistent. For instance, in the courses that I teach, their work is due twice a week on Wednesdays and Sundays. And that is it. I have no other deadlines in the course. So I find that it's easier for me to remember and it's easier for my students to remember. However, that doesn't always work with other instructors' content. So it may be that you're covering multiple things in a week. It may be that you have a longer stretch of time that your instructor is letting you work on things. And so just be really cautious about when the deadlines are for a class. They aren't always going to be consistent. In some courses, they will be. In other courses, they're not going to be. So that's why it's really important to use that syllabus, to use the course calendar, and to look ahead as to when things are due. Because it's not always going to be consistent from course to course. And it may not even be consistent within a course. I know if I have some English professors on campus who, when they're working on writing a paper, they may have a draft due on Monday, and then they may have something due 3 days later, and then 3 days after that. There may be specific days you need to post in your discussion boards. There may be all kinds of different variations and deadlines, and so just make sure that you know that due dates may be as needed, and they may be different from course to course and even within that same course. Next, frequency. Well, due dates, of course, kind of like what I talked about with the frequency of, or the consistency of your work being due, sometimes there's different frequencies. So I know, for instance, for me, I do weekly modules. They open up in my online classes, and they're open for about 9 days from a Friday to a Sunday. Other instructors will set up 2-week modules, for instance, and have just some, as long as the work is done sometime within that 2 weeks, that's great. So you really need to think about the frequency of a course. I don't think there's many courses around still that just go off of testing, like we have a midterm and a final. There may be, I don't know of any. But if that's the case, make sure you're not falling behind and then sort of trying to cram right before that test is due. So make sure that you're thinking about the frequency as to when your work is done. So if your instructor, for instance, lays out 2-week modules, I have a colleague in COM who does this, don't wait until the last day of the 2 weeks. Think about pacing yourself and the frequency at which you're doing your work. Some instructors, I will say, just like on the ground classes, have late work policies. Some say absolutely no late work, and some say yes, late work is acceptable. Some may have you ask for extensions. Some may just have a blanket late work folder set up right in their class so that if you have to turn something in late, you just throw it in that folder and they deal with it. Others, you may have to ask for extensions if a Dropbox has closed. We'll talk a little bit more about asking for extensions and for communication tips and tricks with your instructor in a minute here. But what I want you to know is that there's not a blanket policy, that instructors do not have to accept late work. And so think about that if there is a policy that says, and again, that's why that syllabus is so important for you to understand the policies and procedures of each individual class. But if there is a professor who says, no, I do not accept late work, they are under no obligation to accept late work. And some professors are much more fluid in terms of what they'll take and when they'll take it. And so really understanding that course by course basis as to what's acceptable in each course is really important. I will say one thing, most of the instructors on campus are extremely flexible, but that does not mean that you should be turning in late work all semester if you can help it, right? Try and stay on track with your courses. That's the best thing for you to do, and that's what the instructor likes the most. All right, and then also be considerate about times. The times in D2L are in Central Time. I know with online classes, we have a little bit more movement and a little bit more spread out geography of students. So thinking about those the due times being set in standard time is really important. And also thinking about what time the deadlines are there. Again, they are not all standard across courses. My work is due at 10 o'clock at night. Other professors, I would say probably a majority, have their work due at 11:59 p.m. on that day. So really understanding those specific policies and procedures of each of your classes is going to be really helpful. If you have some deviations, again, there's other things you can do. You can set an alarm on your phone maybe an hour before. You can use a paper planner. You can use the calendar on D2L. Some instructors use the checklist function on there. I know I do, and my students really seem to like that. So thinking about what tools are available to you to help you better understand each individual course that you're enrolled in. I know it can be a lot. The fact that each instructor can have different policies with late work, the fact that each instructor can have different times and due dates, it can be really confusing. That's why it's really important as an online student to make sure that you have things laid out, that you have a clear understanding of what's expected of you, and you know, again, that that syllabus is going to be your magic guide. If there are things missing from the syllabus that you need to know and you cannot find them on the D2L site, do not hesitate to reach out to that instructor and ask for clarification. I would rather ask for clarification than have to take a 0 on an assignment, for instance, if I wasn't sure when it was due, okay? So really think about that. All right. And lastly, just something to throw out there, the pace might be different. So in online learning and on campus, we have accelerated courses, and then we also have what we call like regular courses. So accelerated courses tend to be more work and quicker in pace than our regular 16-week classes. Typically, the accelerated courses are 8 weeks in length, and they're going to require about double the work. So make sure, one, that when you're registering for classes, that you understand if you are signing up for one of those accelerated classes, that you understand that you're going to need to set aside about double the amount of time that you would for a full semester class. It's probably not a good idea just to throw an accelerated course on as your last class with a full load. So really thinking about the time available to you and how much you're really able to put into school at that point in time is going to be important. The accelerated classes, like I said, are typically around 8 weeks, with the regular classes being full semester about 16 weeks. Make sure you're looking at the syllabus. Again, when I talk about moving at different paces, I mentioned that I have a colleague who does 2-week modules, so you have 2 weeks to get the reading done and the work done. For me, it's about 9 days, each little module. Some instructors will open the whole course and say, as long as you have the work in at the end of the course, that works for me. So really thinking about and understanding what that pacing is going to look like. I recommend that if you have an instructor who has an open policy, right, opens the course and says, okay, finish this at your own pace, or someone who has longer modules, that you really set up some milestones for yourself so that you're not waiting until the last day and then feeling overwhelmed about what you have to do, okay? So thinking about that pacing. All right, and lastly, communication can help with many things. It can help you, now I know I'm probably biased because I'm a communication faculty, but it can help you with a lot of things. It can help you get assistance. It can help you with relationship building. Certainly in this time of online learning, it's really important to try to reach out and have some of that human connection. And so thinking about how to build relationships and keeping in touch with your instructors and with your fellow students can be really important during this time. It can also help you stay connected to what is going on campus, to what's going on within your potential major, all these different things. So I want to talk about the 2 different ways that you are most likely going to communicate with your instructor. So let's start with the first. One, email. All right, when you're emailing, make sure as a student that you are giving a professional email out into the world to your instructor. So if you're going to email your instructor, make sure that you're using a professional greeting. Most instructors I know do not mind if you use their first name, but you don't want to be overly casual. So something like, hey, to start an email is probably not the best way to go. So something that might work for me is, hi, Pat. This is so-and-so in this class. This is what's going on. Thank you very much. Okay, so also make sure that you include your full name and class number. Just like you as a student are taking multiple classes, I as an instructor are teaching multiple classes. And so at any given time, I have about 150 students that I'm managing and that I'm working with. And so, if you sign your name, even if you sign your first name, John, I don't always know, I might have 6 Johns, I might have, 4 Ahmeds, I might have 6 Louisas. So thinking about just making sure you're putting your full name in along with your course number as well, it can be really helpful. Make sure that you're looking at the syllabus before you email. If there's an answer that's right there front and center that you can find yourself, be your best resource, right? Don't reach out for help if you can help yourself. And I don't mean that to scare you off of reaching out, because all the instructors that I know on campus are more than happy to help. In fact, that's our favorite part of our job, is helping students individually. But make sure that if it's something where you can find the answer pretty easily, that you just are double checking to make sure that you're not, sending an email out for that. If you get a grade back that you don't agree with, or if you're upset about something, try not to email right away. A lot of times those knee-jerk reaction emails are not going to end well for anyone. I think you'll find that most of your instructors are really reasonable people. But like any other human being, and we are human beings, it doesn't feel very good to get attacked. And it might be better to approach a subject in a place from trying to understand rather than trying to scold or get upset. So I am always willing to work with students if they're upset about a grade or if they feel that something was done unfairly. I'm happy to talk to them and work with them through the process. But I'm going to tell you that you're going to get a lot better results if you come at it with a good attitude and from a place of curiosity rather than a place of anger. You're just going to get better results, and that's the case in most things in life too. All right, and lastly, try and keep your emails brief while still being clear. So let me know what's going on. Let your instructors know what's going on, but I don't need a 6-page novel about each detail of your illness or whatever is happening, okay? So just know that most of us are flexible. Most of us are willing to work with you. And I think it's a good idea to try and keep emails somewhat brief while still being able to get your message across. And so when you're thinking about what you should write, I think this is a good strategy here. Be proactive. If you know you're not going to be able to get some assignments done, if you know something's coming up, if you know something is usually difficult for you, be proactive. Email early, okay? That way there's time for the instructor to help you. I always say to my students, if a student sort of goes away and doesn't do work for 2 weeks and then emails me and says, oh, I fell behind, it's like, yeah, I can't. It's really hard to go back 2 weeks now. If it would have been easier 2 weeks ago, if you would have said, I see a stretch in my life right here. It's not gonna go well. What can I do? Be proactive, okay? You need to be your own advocate. Be reasonable with your requests. Sometimes I have students who don't do any of the work all semester, and then at the end of the semester, they email me sort of demanding extra credit. And it's like, well, you didn't do any of the work in the course. So think about, is your request reasonable? Most instructors, again, are willing to work with you, but it has to be reasonable. I always really appreciate, and I know a lot of other instructors appreciate as well, if you propose a path. By that, I mean, if you're going to ask for an extension, tell me how long you need. Don't just say, I need an extension this week. Thanks. Say, hey, I need an extension. I've got a couple of things came up. I know I'm not going to be able to get the work done, within a day or two when it's due. So I'm asking for an extension, or I'm requesting an extension until Wednesday at midnight. If you come up with a proposal for solving your own problem, most of the time I'm going to go, great, sounds good. But when I have students email me and say, can I have an extension? I don't know how long to grant. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you don't understand the assignment or if things just came up. And so really being proactive and proposing your own path can be very helpful. And again, learn and grow. If your instructor comes back with a response that you do not like, this is an opportunity to learn from that and think about maybe what we could do next time differently to not get into that situation where we're having to communicate with the instructor, maybe something negative or maybe something that upset you, or I don't know what the circumstance might be here. But thinking about being able to learn and grow from setbacks is really important, okay? All right. And office hours are the last thing I want to cover. So office hours, every faculty is required to have office hours because we're not on campus right now. And even if we teach online classes, we are able to have virtual office hours. So many of those are set up differently. Some instructors hang out in a Zoom room where you can pop in and out. Some instructors prefer just email. Some instructors will hop on the phone with you. Some will be available to in different ways. And so it's a good way to check in with your instructor and just say hi if you want to build that relationship. It's a really nice, quick, easy way to ask any clarifying questions you have about assignments. I know that sometimes in emails, things can get lost in translation. So if you just have a quick question that would be much easier answered through, face-to-face or through an individual consultation more, then office hours are a great way to do that. Asking about your grade, that's a great way to do it during office hours, and just being able to work through a grade or through the grade book in D2L and just try and figure out kind of where you stand. I'm happy to do that with my students. I know the other instructors are as well. And then getting specific help with assignments. You can always pop in for specific help. I also know that most instructors will not only honor their office hours, but they will also be available by appointment. So if an office hour doesn't work for you, do not stress out. Just go ahead and email that instructor and say, hey, you know what? I have another class during your office hour. Could we meet at this time? Does this work for you? Or do you have any time on Thursdays that might work? I know I always would respond in the affirmative, and I know that most of the people I work with would also. So don't stress out if you can't come to an office hour. There's other ways to schedule individual consultations with your instructor. All right. Good deal. Well, that was the quick and dirty strategies for success in online classes. There's, of course, so many different things we could say, but again, understanding yourself, knowing your weaknesses, and being able to figure out a way to bolster those, to work around those, and to think through how you're going to tackle those in online classes is really important. Understanding the expectations of your instructor is also extremely important, and understanding that every instructor sets up their own class, has their own policies, has their own way of doing things can be, I think, sometimes a revelation for students to understand that that's kind of how that works. And so you need to work with each individual instructor if things come up. And then lastly, understanding how to communicate. Really important. You're going to have to communicate with your instructors at some point over the course, over any course, really. And so thinking about how to do that effectively so that you get what you need out of it and your instructor understands what you're asking and you're building a good relationship while you're doing it. So good luck and happy online learning.